Panther News. I'm Maya.
And I'm Nora. Today we're here with Hannah Bowen.
I'm Hannah Bowen, and I'm running to be your state representative, serving Beverly and Wenham Precinct 1.
Our first question, could you tell our audience a little bit about what a state representative does?
Yes, so this is one of the questions I got the most while campaigning because most people don't see what our state rep does every day. So our state representative is Beverly, and now part of Wenham's representative to the state legislature, the House of Representatives, where they vote on legislation, laws of the state, and help get funding for the city, and help residents of our district navigate state government. So if you have an issue getting your driver's license or getting benefits or figuring out how to access someone at the state level, your state rep should be your first call.
Would you tell us about how you got into politics?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was already a bit of a policy nerd. So we had a government class at Swampscott High. I was part of the Political Action Club and Model UN, Model Congress, things like that, and just loved really the whole idea of how we make decisions together and how as a community, whether that's a school community or a town or a city or broader, how we figure out what we need collectively and make trade-offs and things like that. So I sort of always had that, and when I went to college, I studied political science, but never thought I would be in the politics side of things. I thought of policy and politics as different. But as I started working, particularly in advocacy work at a nonprofit, I realized it really is all connected. And so when I moved back to the North Shore, started getting more involved in the politics side of things and ended up running for city council here in 2021. And it was sort of like one thing leads to another.
What was the moment you knew you wanted to run for state representative?
Yeah, so, as I started getting involved, I started to learn what each of our elected officials does, what the different levels of government are working on that impact us in Beverly. So I had a good sense of what our state representative was doing, and our former state rep was doing a great job in that role. So it was not really on my radar as something that would be an important place for me to contribute until I heard that our state representative was becoming a district court judge. Mm-hmm. And so I thought to myself, okay, what do we need in that role? For our community, for our district, what kind of traits do we need? What kind of experience do we need? What are our values that we want represented there? And felt like I was in a good position to play that role and bring all of our voices up to the State House. So it was really in that moment, back in November, December, when I heard that news, that I thought, oh, this is the right thing at the right time where I can contribute in a way that's really important.
Could you tell us what running for state rep entails?
Yes, a lot of walking around Beverly and Wenham and knocking on strangers' doors and just asking them what's on their minds. And that's often surprising for people. So I know I don't always answer my phone or my door when I don't know who's on the other side of it. But it's really nice to meet neighbors that way and figure out what's most important right now. And so I heard a lot about our roads and sidewalks. Too many potholes, the bridge that we can't cross, all these things. And also heard a lot about what people are really scared about right now, thinking about our democracy and how healthy it is, thinking about programs that we all rely on and how we're going to keep paying for them, and how much everything feels like it costs right now. So got to talk through all that with people. And the campaign is this mixture of going out and doing that one-on-one conversations, having events to bring people together, to meet each other, and to kind of build that energy around there's a campaign, there's an election happening. And a lot of campaigning is just letting people know what's going to be on the ballot. In this case, it was a special election, so it wasn't the usual time. Usually we have our elections in the fall. So just letting people know that there was going to be an election, that there was only one thing on the ballot, and that we had party primaries first and then the final election, so people had to go out and vote twice, a lot of it is just figuring out between mailing postcards and making phone calls and sending text messages and being on social media and being out, with holding signs on street corners, just all of the different ways that we could let people know that it was happening, that they had choices, where to get information, because we're all busy and we have to know that people get information in different ways and try and build a whole campaign around that. So I was lucky to have a whole committee of people supporting the campaign and working on that strategy. How much do we do each of those things, and bringing all the conversations that volunteers were having back together to figure out, okay, what are we learning, and who else do we need to talk to?
Speaking of learning, what did you learn? What did you learn on the campaign trial?
Yeah, so campaigning really is supposed to be about listening and learning the whole time, and it really was this time. So this was a pretty fast campaign. Often people will, decide to run for an office and have a whole year to slowly get to know different issues and different members of the community they might not have met before. This was all accelerated into just a few months. But I learned a lot about, I think how people are thinking about government right now, and there's a real lack of trust in some cases that I think is well earned, that people feel like they haven't been fully represented at different levels of government, and that spills over. So if you feel like your local government isn't responsive, then you carry that forward to state or federal government, and vice versa. So learned a lot about how people are thinking about government right now, and learned a lot of potential solutions. That's the thing that I find most exciting about the campaigning phase, and that I think on city council has carried through serving in the role too. So I'm hopeful in this role it's the same, that people bring up so many great ideas. And so, I had people talking about ways they'd like to see our schools evolve and provide more tailored solutions for students who, learn in different ways, things like that. Ideas for fixing the bridge faster, ideas for how to raise the funds to pay for things in creative ways so that the burden doesn't fall only on property taxes and things like that. So just lots of really great ideas and topics that I might not be, that much of an expert on or know that much about, but now I know who to talk to in the community. There's somebody working on that in their professional career, or there's somebody who has experience with that in their personal life, and now I can go back if there's legislation or there's a question on something and talk to neighbors about it.
How did your previous experiences prepare you for the job of state rep?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of different potential pathways into these jobs, and it's nice to have a mix of experience in an elected body. And so I've really enjoyed on our council the fact that, we all have different career paths and experiences, and that adds up to a good decision-making body. And so for the state rep role, because it is a mix of constituent services, that helping people navigate state services and issues that they're having, and legislation and budgeting, I have some experience in each of those. So I've worked in the nonprofit sector, mostly in advocacy, policy, and now more direct services. And so that idea of someone calling with a problem, they're not sure who to turn to. They just know that things aren't going their way. And it's my job to help them figure out those next steps. Like that I've been doing professionally for a while now. And in my most recent role working in a nonprofit here at the Cummings Center, we help people with conflict. So somebody is, in an argument with their landlord about their rent, or they're in an argument with a family member that they just can't figure out. We help them through that. So that's a really good experience in how to listen to people, identify what's really going on, what services could help, how to access them. And then on the policy side, I have a master's degree, so I went back to school to get more training in especially economics and understanding what are the impacts of different policy choices and how to do that policy analysis. And a state rep doesn't have to do that on their own. There are lots of organizations that help, and you have typically staff, either committee staff or individual staff, who help go through all that. But having some understanding of how it works, I think, will just make that transition easier. So I've tried along the way to build up those skills that are applicable to a lot of different things, but I think will help in this role too.
What issues does the state legislator work on that kids should care about?
Yeah, so a lot. I mean, we're in the high school right now, so education, funding, and policy is really important. And some of that happens at the city level. So our school committee votes on the budget for our schools, and sets curriculum policies, and sets the start time and end time, and things like that are decided at a local level, but they are within constraints and guidance set at the state level. And some of that is by the state departments. So under the governor's office, each of the departments that do the kind of day-to-day administrative work. So, some of that is like regulations there, and some is legislation. And so, the education committee in the state house is always working on state level policies that guide what school committees can and can't do. And all of our state reps vote on the state funding that goes back to communities, because, communities have different levels of property taxes and capacity to fund education. And we've decided as a state that we want everyone to have a high quality education regardless of communities' capacity to pay. And so we use our state tax base to sort of rebalance and ensure that minimum level of investment in all of our schools and minimum standards of quality and curriculum. So our state reps play a role in making sure that that funding gets out to schools, that it happens equitably, and that those standards are set well. So in the school realm, there's a lot. And then I think there's a lot of other things that really directly impact young people. So everything from healthcare to, our roads and sidewalks matter to young people too, having open space. And, all of those things have a state level component, whether it's funding or it's laws about what we can and cannot do or what protections we have. Those are all things that directly impact young people. So I'm curious what else is on your minds, and really invite everyone in Beverly and Wenham to reach out with questions and ideas. If you're not sure if something is happening at the state level on an issue that you care about, reach out and we'll figure it out.
All right.
All right. Okay. How can kids have a voice on issues they care about in the legislature? Why should they get involved?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take the second part first and then the how. So the why, I think, is because we really are all impacted by these decisions. And I think right now you can really see the difference state by state across this country of how we're making investments and what rights we're really focused on protecting, and how we're really prioritizing things like education and healthcare, and those investments in people. And and you can see that different states making different decisions can have different outcomes. And so I think it's really important to learn as much as you can about what's happening and feed into it. And so how you feed into it will be coming by my office, and I'll be having office hours around the community at scheduled times and places that people can just drop in and talk about what's important to you. Always feel free to reach out. And then there's sometimes more formal ways to get involved. If there's a bill that's under consideration that impacts young people's lives, you can come to the State House and testify on it. You can write a letter that goes on file that lets us know what you're thinking. You can propose ideas. There may be things that I won't have thought of because, I was a young person a couple of decades ago. And there are new things happening that I might not be thinking about yet. And the only way I'm going to be able to represent you well is if you're part of that conversation. And so part of the job of a state rep, I think, is to make sure that that I do as much as I can, that we do as much as we can to help people feel comfortable coming with those ideas. Because it also can be a little intimidating sometimes. I went into the State House yesterday to be sworn in, and it is a big, imposing place. There were school groups going around in tours. I think that's great to get to, feel like, yes, this is our building too, and break down some of that, like, oh, this is just something that happens. We send someone up to the State House and then we're done. But no, that it's all of us trying to make these decisions together. And so we send representatives to be there for the votes and to have the formal role, but really they should be constantly asking for input and ideas. And so I hope that young people feel comfortable coming with those.
That's awesome. Our last question for today, ultimately, what kind of legacy do you wish to leave behind as a leader? Yeah,
it's a big question. And I think one that anybody entrusted with a public service role should be thinking about, because it's really, it's not necessarily a personal legacy. It's a legacy of what was the impact of being in public service at this time. And so, when I think about the time that we're in, it's a really turbulent time, and there's a lot of hard things about that, and a lot of opportunities. So there are whole systems that have been running a certain way for a really long time that are breaking down now, and that means we're in a position right now to rebuild them. And so I hope that my role here and that part of the legacy of this work is that we're rebuilding things in a way that works better for more people, so that, Beverly as a community maintains the amazing environment that we have as a coastal community and with lots of great open space, and becomes more affordable so that people are able to move in and stay and live comfortably, and really thrive in our arts scene and in really creative industries, and that we're keeping pace with the change in our economy and not just kind of grinding people down, but really building something that works. So I hope that's part of what I'm able to contribute to.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us today, and thank you everyone for watching. Tune in next time on Panther News. Bye.
Bye. Clink.
Good.
Clink.
Perfect.
Clink.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great questions.